Hey, what is going on everyone? It's me, Mr. Mario, and in this video here, as you can see, we are back over at the Xbox 360, and I'm going to be showing you all something that at one point was thought to be impossible for almost 20 years. I'm going to be showing you all how you can take a completely stock, unmodified Xbox 360 like this, and within a few minutes, just by downloading and copying over a few files, and having them on a USB drive of some kind, you can be in the land of Homebrew, messing around with backing up your games, running custom dashboards, unsigned code, emulators, and so much more. If this sounds like an impossibility and something you've been told is just simply not possible, well, it was like that for a while until the release of Bad Update. For those who do not know, this is a Hypervisor software-only exploit for the Xbox 360 that runs on kernel 17559, and like I said at the beginning, allows you, as long as you have a USB drive on hand, to copy a few files over this and then be able to run unsigned code on your completely stock system. No need to install anything, no need to open up the console, no need to solder anything. Now it is worth noting that this exploit is not persistent, and that means that you only have to do the setup one time on your USB drive, and you can take around that drive with you and use it on different systems. However, if it's not persistent, that means that every single time you turn off the system and turn it back on, your system is no longer modified, so you will have to go through the process of launching this again. But if you've used something such as PS3 Hen, it's pretty similar to that compared to custom firmware. If you're looking for something persistent that also gives you more elevated access to your system, you're going to be looking at RGH. That is going to require you or somebody else to open up your system, solder in a few things, and reprogram the NAND on there. The nice thing is though, you only have to do the solder work one time, it is persistent, and it allows you to have some lower level access. One of the examples being, if you want to use an internal hard drive on your system, even on a Bad Update system, it must have a Microsoft certified security sector on there. That means you're also limited to the certain drives and even drive size. Whilst with an RGH, you can really throw any hard drive or any SSD in there and format it. Standard RGH systems can go up to 2 terabytes, and with additional patches, they can even go up to 16 terabytes. So if something like that is more your speed, then you're going to want to look into RGH, and I'm going to have videos showing how to set it up down below in the description. But if you want to at least sample the world of having a modified Xbox 360 and you just have a USB drive on hand, you don't want to open it up, you don't want to solder anything, Bad Update is now at a pretty reliable state. And it's now at the point where you could take a system just like this one right here, and within a few minutes, once you set it up, well, you can have a system that looks a little something like this once you boot up Bad Update. So if you're interested in having something like this, you know, having your backup games, having your emulators, your applications on here, and being able to just load it all onto a flash drive pretty easily, then this is the video that's got you covered. Now I will say, in terms of prerequisites, thankfully this is pretty easy to set up, but don't be intimidated by the long length of this video here, because things have changed in the world of Bad Update for the better, I would say. There are certain steps that you no longer have to do, and there's also going to be other steps and procedures that I'm going to put in here, so by the end of this video, if you watch this from start to finish, you'll be able to pretty much hit the ground sprinting after this. By the end of this video, you should know how to navigate your Homebrew, jump into different applications, back up and play your Xbox 360 and original Xbox games, and kind of get some guidance on where else to go aside from that. So with all that being said, there's going to be a few things you're going to need. First of all, you are going to need an Xbox 360. Now I'm going to go ahead and get out of my custom dashboard here, but you're going to need a standard Xbox 360. It does not have to be modified in any way, shape, or form. It just needs to be up and running and working. Secondly, you're also going to need a USB drive on hand. This can be an external hard drive, an external solid-state drive, or even just a standard USB flash drive. Make sure it's at least 1 gigabyte in size, but keep in mind you can go up to 2 terabytes in size. And finally, you're also going to need something such as a computer to download and copy over a few files that we're going to need on that USB drive. So with all that, let's go ahead and get started here. The first thing we can do is check to see if our dashboard needs to be updated. In order to do that, fire up your console, navigate all the way over to Settings, go to System, go to Console Settings, and then come down to the bottom over to System Info, and check the dashboard number. You can see here mine is 2.0.17559.0, and the 5 digits is what's going to be important. If you check the Bad Update repository, you can see here that your console must be on dashboard version 17559 in order to use this exploit. So if your console is showing 17559, you're in a good spot and you can skip to the USB drive setup portion. However, if you are on a lower dashboard, you're going to need to update to this dashboard, and I'll show you how to do that real quick. The first thing we can do here is take our USB drive, make sure it is plugged in, and go down to the storage section. Now, once you come over here, find your USB drive, and we're going to format it. If it doesn't show up like this, you might have to hit the A button and select format, but you might have to hit A or Y right here. Typically, it's going to be Y. Come down to the format section, tap the A button. Make sure you're okay with destroying the data on here. If you have any important data, you must back it up now because it's going to wipe all data on this drive. And this is going to be the drive we're going to be using for bad update. So in order to format this here, just go ahead and navigate over to yes, and wait a few moments for this to format. And here we go. Once it's been formatted, we can now disconnect our USB drive from the system and take it over to our computer. In the description of this video, I'm going to have the 17559 dashboard linked down below, in which you can come over to this Digix page, and then you can click the download link for the system update 17559. Just save it somewhere you can easily find it. Now, once your system update has downloaded, go ahead, plug in your USB drive and check it right here. Where you should see mine is empty, but even if I right click and check the properties, it should be FAT32 file system, and this here is required. If you formatted it on the Xbox 360 and it's showing up as full, or there's not enough space on there, then you might have been on an old enough dashboard where it handled formatting a bit differently. So in order to fix that, well, you can just format it again. You can right click your USB drive, click on format. It should already be set to FAT32, but if we need to wipe it here, you can set FAT32 for the file system. Default allocation size is fine. Quick format is okay. Hit start, okay. And then once it's been formatted, we should be good at that point. With that formatted again, we can grab our system update USB zip file, and you can right click this and extract it using something such as 7-zip. It's going to give you a cache system update folder, and you just need to right click and copy out this cache system update folder, go into your USB drive, right click and paste it into the root. So there we go. It's almost done copying, but once it's done copying, it should look exactly like this. And once that's been all set up, we can come out here, right click, eject, and close out of here. We can also get rid of the system update since we're not going to need it after we update. Back over at the console, plug your USB drive in and wait at the dashboard. After a few seconds, you should get a pop-up like this asking you to update. You're going to want to say yes, and at this point, it's going to go through the process of updating your kernel and then restarting your system. Once it restarts, it's then going to extract out the additional avatar data, and once that's completed, you should be kicked back to the dashboard itself. And if you're at this screen now, then congratulations, you've been able to update your system just fine. But to verify it, you can navigate all the way over to Settings, System, Console Settings, go to the bottom for System Info, and if you're now showing dashboard 17559, congratulations, you've done hopefully the last dashboard update you need to, and you should be good to go to continue on with bad update. With our console being confirmed up to date, let's go ahead and set up bad update. We're going to need our USB drive, plug it into your system if you have not already, and once it is plugged in, we can navigate all the way over to Settings, go to System, go to Storage, and you should see a USB drive right here. Now, if it's showing up as something like unformatted, you're just going to have to tap the A button to go in there, or if it's showing up like this already, you can tap the Y button, and we're going to format our drive. This is going to be the drive that we're going to use for our bad update setup here. Now, keep in mind, once we format this, it is going to destroy any data that you care about from this drive. So if there's anything you care about, disconnect it, hook it up to your computer, back up your data, and then bring it back over here. But as long as you're okay getting rid of this data here, we're going to hit format, say yes, wait a few seconds here, and once this is completed, we should have a USB drive that's ready to copy over to. So there we go, that's all done. With that all completed here, we can come back over, disconnect our USB drive, and bring it over to our computer. The links for everything I'm going to show will be down below in the description, and there's going to be several downloads we're going to get. It might seem a little bit overwhelming, but trust me, they all end up working together pretty well. So first of all, we're going to need bad update itself here. Now, there is a great README right here in which it kind of covers what exactly this is. It also covers the quick start as well as some frequently asked questions. So if you have any additional questions or you're even interested in the technical aspect of this, I would recommend giving this a read. But if you want to just get the download, all you need to do is navigate over to the releases section, and then we're going to download the latest build of bad update. In order to do that, find whichever the latest one is, and download the latest Xbox 360 bad update retail USB zip file. Just save that somewhere you can easily find it. The next piece of software we're going to need here is XE Unshackle or Xenon Unshackle. I might be using those interchangeably, but whichever one I say, it's going to be for the same payload. And this is going to allow us to actually have the necessary kernel patches in memory to allow us to have all the fun we want to on our Xbox 360. I would recommend, yet again, giving this a good read here because there's some great information here that's just helpful to know. But once you've given this a read, we can go ahead, scroll up here, and navigate over to the releases section and download the latest build of XE Unshackle. Just go ahead, click and save the zip file somewhere you can easily find it. The next download will be the trial for Rock Band Blitz. Now, if you do not have this game, that is fine because we're actually going to be downloading a trial or demo, and that's going to work for us. Yes, it does sound a little silly, but we're going to be using this as an entry point for bad update. In order to download this, click on the link, which is linked down below in the description, and then click on one of the download links and save this somewhere you can easily find it. Once we have our system in a modified state, it would be helpful to use a custom dashboard to navigate around our well-customized and modified environment. I'll show this to you all using the Aurora dashboard. Now, I'm linking this to console mods here because there's a couple of important links. The first one here is quite literally in the very first word, Aurora. If you click on this, it will bring you to the official download page for Aurora, in which you can scroll down and you can download the latest build of it, save it somewhere you can easily find it, just like everything else. However, I'll keep it real with you all. There's many times that website does seem to go down, so when it goes down, people can't seem to download it, but thankfully, Console Mods has provided a link here in which you can click on this mirror and download it in case the official website is down. For our first actual Homebrew application, we have XEX menu right here, which serves as a pretty good file manager right here in order to at least get things started. Some people also prefer to use XEX menu at times if they don't want the custom dashboard. It doesn't really matter what you do as long as you're able to play and enjoy your games. But either way, I'll have this linked. You can go ahead and download the live/XEX version and save it with all your other downloads. Finally, something that can help you all out is going to be Simple 360 NAND Flasher. I'll have this linked. The link is down here once you get on this page in order to download it, and you should be good at that point. Oh, and if at any time you're having difficulty extracting out some of these archives, I would recommend using 7-zip. You can download it, install it, it's free to use, and it's pretty simple. So with this all here for a pretty good starter setup, we're just going to go right down the list. The first thing we're going to grab is bad update itself to give us our actual foundation. In order to extract this out, you can right click it and extract it into its own folder using any type of extraction software. I'm using 7-zip for this. Once you have your extracted folder, it's going to give you 2 additional folders in here, and these are going to be for the entry point games that are available. Now there's 2 of them you could see, American Wasteland and Rock Band Blitz. Some people might be wondering real quick why I'm not covering American Wasteland. You can certainly do this here. However, keep in mind this does require having a copy of the game. If you want to get a disc version, they are pretty pricey at this point, but I'll say that even the way this all works, it's actually faster and even better if you use Rock Band Blitz. So if you really want to use Tony Hawk, I do have an older video covering the steps for that, but this is going to be only using a USB drive, which requires Rock Band Blitz. So in order to do that, I would recommend actually going into both of these folders here, go into Rock Band Blitz, go into the bad update payload directory, and look for a default.xex file. The one inside Rock Band Blitz does not have it. However, if you navigate to Tony Hawk's American Wasteland, go yet again to bad update payload, you might see a default executable right here. What we're going to do is delete this file here because we're going to replace it with our own. And if you need help seeing the file name extensions within Windows, you can click on View, Show File Name Extensions. Either way, since we're going to be using Rock Band Blitz here, navigate into the Rock Band Blitz folder, highlight both the bad update payload and the content directories, right click, copy them out. Now navigate over to your USB drive, mine is the G drive here, and within the USB drive itself, you can right click and paste. You might also have a hidden content folder already there, and if you want to verify this, again, if you're using Windows, you can click on View, Show, Hidden Items, and if it's hidden, that's totally fine, as long as you have it. The next thing we need is XE Unshackle. Go ahead, right click, and extract this out right here. Once it gives you the XE Unshackle folder, you can go ahead and go through this, and I'd recommend reading this README important because it is an important README to go through. This is going to show the setup instructions as well as some of the usage notes here, some notes regarding stealth servers, which I will say I'm not covering in this video here, so it would be recommended to give this a read. Additionally, there's also some recommended apps, but we already have those downloaded. So once that's all read, we can close out of here, and we're just going to have to copy out the files that are here. So just highlight everything except for the README. That is the only one we do not need. So you should have bad update payload, JRPC2, launch, as well as the XBDM executables. You can grab all these, right click, copy them out, go back to your USB drive, and then right click and paste in the root of your USB drive. We now need to extract out that Rock Band trial, so you can right click this and use 7-zip to extract it into its own directory. It'll give us a new folder right here in which it's just going to give us the content directory, and this will have the necessary structure that contains the game itself. So you can just right click the content folder, copy it out, go back to our USB drive, and right here you can right click and paste it into the root. Give it a few moments to copy it over. This is going to be the biggest file. Let's move on to our custom dashboard. So we can now right click this and use something such as 7-zip to extract it into its own folder. Once it's been extracted into its own folder, I would recommend right clicking this and renaming it. So just shorten it to Aurora, just like that, because we don't need the exact release package string and such in there. So once that's done, we can just right click, copy this out, go to your USB drive, and from here, if you want to organize it a little bit, you can make a new folder, and I'm going to call this one apps, for example, and inside of the apps directory, we can right click and we can paste in our Aurora installation. Next up is XEX menu, which you can just right click and extract out right here. It'll give you an XEX menu 1.1 folder. There's going to be a README in here, which you can give this a read if you so wish to. So you can get a bit more of an explanation over some of the features it has, as well as some of the installations and such here. However, there's going to be two installations of it. One of them is just the raw files, and one of them is an actual games on demand container or package, or technically a game demo if we look at it here. So we can actually just put the both of them on there just so we can have a bit of redundancy and kind of a backup of sorts. That's usually how I set mine up. So what we can do is take the both of these, right click them, and just extract them into their own folders. Now if you go into the live folder, you're going to get a code 9999 folder right here. This is how you copy it out. Just go ahead, right click, copy this out, and within your USB drive, navigate to the drive itself, go into that hidden content folder. Like I said before, if you can't see it, click on View, Show, Hidden Items. But go into the content folder, go into this zeros directory, and then next to an existing folder right here, I know this one is my Rock Band Blitz, right click and paste. And you can see that it's now transferred over. Additionally, for the raw file version, it just looks something like this here. We can go ahead and rename this to make it look a little bit nicer. I'm just going to call it simply XEX menu 1.1. And from there, you can right click, copy this one out, not the live version. We're going to get the raw file version, but you can go ahead, right click, copy this out, and then go back to your USB drive and paste it into the apps directory. The last thing we need here is Simple 360 NAND Flasher, which you can just right click and use anything to extract it here. Once that's been extracted, you have this folder, right click, copy out this folder, go back to your USB drive, go into the apps directory, right click and paste. So your setup should now look a little something like this, but we're not fully done. We're going to need to make one more change, and this is going to be to the launch.ini file. If you've never messed with these here, they could be a little bit intimidating, but it's not all too bad. Go ahead and double click this to open it up, and you can use something such as Notepad or even Notepad++, or really any type of good text editing software in order to update this. Since I'll be honest, I'm not personally a fan of how this looks without the colors and such, I'm going to reopen this in Notepad++. I'll have that linked down below in the description. Great program, but you can use whatever program you want as long as you can edit text files like this appropriately. Now this does look much nicer in terms of readability, and kind of just running through this here, you can see that there's multiple different paths here that you can set up within things to launch. So you can point to anything within your internal hard drive, even a memory unit. The USB drive is probably what's going to be used the most here, and there's a few pre-populated fields right here. Keep in mind as well too that all this green text, or really any of the text that has a semicolon in front of it, is a comment, and these comments are written in pretty plain English. So what I'd recommend doing is if there's anything you're wondering about or you're maybe confused on, just read the comments before the fields here. For example, for default, it states, default is what loads when you hold no buttons. Leave this blank if you want NXC as default, meaning the main dashboard. We don't want to do that. We want to have a custom dashboard right here. So in order to set up a custom dashboard, we're going to have to point to the exact path that we want to load in. Now our custom dashboard is going to be under apps, Aurora, and it's going to be the Aurora XEX file. So since I want this to load up by default once we load up bad update here, I'll show you how to set that. If you're looking to set this up, you just need to type in right here usb:/apps/aurora/aurora.xex. So that means that with this path right here, so again, that means that this is the path that we've set this on our USB drive. And if you check, yet again, here's our drive, apps, Aurora, Aurora XEX. It's set up exactly like that. Now real quick on plugins, I'll actually show you all how you can set them up, and it's pretty simple to do. I would recommend at least reading the instructions for your associated plugins you're trying to set up, and this one here is not one that you're required to download, but it is a plugin which allows you to play some development and debug builds on your system. For this example, I've already downloaded HVP2, and you just need to take your plugin and you need to place it somewhere. Some plugins will tell you to place it in a certain directory or somewhere specific. This one doesn't really have that, so you can just put it in the root of the drive, for example. So it's with all my other plugins. After you've copied it over, I would recommend clicking on this here, grabbing the exact file name, right click and copy. Then you can go ahead, then you can open up your launch any file. From here, go to your plugin section, find any of the empty sections missing a plugin, and then you can type in the exact path. Since it's going to be in the root, I'm going to type in USB:/. Then I'm going to paste that in, and once you do that, you can hit save. And there you go. That's how you add a plugin. Now you can read through the other settings here. I'm personally not going to be changing these, but one of the important ones, which is set by default, is live block. Because if this is set to true, that is going to block Xbox Live connections while this is running. So do keep that in mind. I do intend to keep it like that, but if you want to change any of these other settings, you can go ahead, read them, see what's going to work best for your configuration, and go from there. Either way, once we're done here, we can click on the save option, and then we can close out of this completely. So I know that was probably a lot to front load right here, but once this is all completed, this is how your USB drive should look. If you navigate in here, you should have your apps folder with any applications you want to set up here, the bad update payload folder, the content folder, as well as your launch.ini. A name.txt is fine, and then you should have your 2 plugins that came with XE Unshackle. Once that's all been set up, we can exit out of here, right click, eject our USB drive, and we're now going to start working on modding this Xbox. Back over at the console, go ahead and plug in your USB drive, and before we launch bad update, there's going to be some necessary cleanup we need to do. One of the first things we can do is, well, actually check our storage. You can go over to settings, system, go down to storage, and the first part of importance here is going to be your USB drive storage. Of course, we do need this here, but when running this, you should only have one USB drive plugged in at a time. So if you have multiple drives, for example, go ahead and unplug any other drives. Your drive with bad update should be the only external drive hooked up there. And then after bad update is run, you can plug in any other drives that you might need. But at the time of running this, only have the bad update drive plugged in. The second thing is going to be important for anybody who has played Rock Band at all on their consoles. What you can do is navigate to your other system storage. Mine is hard drive, for example. Go into the hard drive, go to games and apps, and scroll down to the R section. Now once you get here, we're going to look for the Rock Band games. And here's the quick, simple fact about it. You cannot have any type of Rock Band content or DLC, including customs and such. You cannot have any content on your console since we're going to be using bad update for this here. You just cannot have that on here. So you have a few options of doing this here. The first thing is, if you don't care about the content at all, you can just go in here and you can delete it. If you want to re-download it later on, that's up to you, but you can delete that content. Otherwise, if it is content that you do care about and you do not or you cannot re-download it, what you can do is navigate to any of these, hit the Y button, hit move, and from here you can move this to your USB drive and then back it up to your computer, or move it over to a different USB drive, maybe one you were already using, and then disconnect that. But the point here is that, again, you cannot have any other Rock Band content on your console. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this over. So we have that. And I'll go ahead and move over this second one that, let's just say I want to save these here. So there we go, those have been moved over. So I'm going to go ahead and disconnect my USB drive, take it over to my computer. If you're going to back this up on your computer, go to your USB drive, content, zeros directory, and then look for any of the Rock Band folders here. You might not know exactly what they are here, but I know mine are pretty easy to identify because, in short, this USB drive is clean, and the only content I put on here is this one, which is XEX menu, and this here, which is Rock Band Blitz. So I know these two, as well as this, are going to be related to Rock Band. With that done, I can right click, cut these out, and let's paste them onto the desktop, and we'll call that backed up. So now with all that done, we can right click, eject, and take our USB drive back over to the system. Now the last bit of cleanup is going to be, well, related to Xbox Live right here. And I'll say I'm one of those people who I want to be more proactive as opposed to reactive with this. So what I usually recommend doing is, if you can, just keep your system completely offline. If you're going to be modding, if you're going to be messing around with this system here, it's just going to be best to keep it completely offline. But even if you're not going to do that, you do you on there, but keep in mind, even in 2025, there are still bans for the Xbox 360 that are happening in regard to modding. So with that, if you have a system connected to the internet, what I would recommend doing is, well, disconnecting it. You can go over to System, go over to your network settings, and then check to see what kind of network you're on. I myself am on a wired network, so that means I can just unplug and plug in my Ethernet cable at will. I actually just did that, so I disconnected it, so now my system is not on any network. You're going to want to do that before you jump into bad update. Additionally, if you have a Wi-Fi network that you're connected to, you're going to want to go to your Wi-Fi network and disconnect from it, so forget the credentials on your system, and then once bad update is enabled, you can go in and you can re-enable your Wi-Fi or hook up your Ethernet cable. It is nice to have network capabilities on a modified system, but just keep in mind that running a modded environment is not going to be live safe. And speaking of safety, one last thing we can do is make an offline profile and make it exclusive for bad update. If you want to create a profile, just bring up your guide, create a profile. I'm going to put this one on my USB drive. There we go. And I'm even going to call it bad update. So there we go. It's creating the profile, signing in. I'll go ahead and pick a default avatar. Why not? We have that. We can hit done. And if it helps, you can also navigate over to your settings, go to your profile settings, and even setting this as a default to sign in here would be good. That way, you're not going to mess around with any of your live profiles and you're not going to run Homebrew on them. So now with all of that prepared, we have our bad update account, we have everything set up and our system is offline, we can go ahead and start firing up bad update. Now keep in mind, this is what you're going to have to do every single time you turn on your system, but it's not too bad. We can navigate over to the games section, go to my games, navigate all the way over to the end where you can look for Rock Band Blitz. And by the way, just to cover this here, in case you do not see XEX menu 1.1, don't worry about it. It might or might not show up for you, but it will show up after you run bad update and while it is running. But either way, find Rock Band Blitz and tap the A button to load in. It's going to go through the intro here, so just give it a few seconds to run through this. So now at this point, if it says running exploit, congratulations, you have done everything needed and all you need to do is put down your controller and wait. Now, some people might be looking at the front of their console and freaked out by what the LEDs are doing. And if they change red, that doesn't mean anything bad is happening. The exploit is actually working and that just means you're running it on a fat system instead of a slim. But this is representative of the different stages of bad update. Typically, you're going to see two LEDs representing stage 2. Then once it gets to stage 3 and 4, the LEDs are kind of going to move a little bit crazy like, and then you'll be able to get into bad update itself. Additionally, if the system ends up freezing, so that means the game is no longer moving here, the background's not moving, and there's no music playing, turn off your system, turn it back on, launch Rock Band Blitz, and try it again. And finally, you might be waiting here for a few seconds or even a few minutes, but if you're waiting for over 20 minutes, yet again, turn off your system, turn it back on, and run Rock Band Blitz yet again. It might take a few tries. That is the nature of bad update, but trust me, it is much better than it used to be before. People used to wait hours or sometimes even days. Sometimes this would take me about an hour to get into. It took other people several hours. Some people I saw it took maybe 12 hours of trying. And as an example, I saw many people doing this. What they would do is they would spend hours trying to get bad update up and running, and then after it was running successfully, they would just keep their console on for days on end, hoping it didn't crash and hoping they didn't lose power so they don't have to go through this process yet again. But keep in mind, we're in a better time now for bad update, and even if this is taking a bit, go ahead, get up, walk around, do what you need to, get yourself a cup of coffee, take the dog out, use the restroom, so that way you'll be ready to play here once this is loaded in. And here we go, it was successful. So at this point, you should have the original MAC address dumped the first time you run this. You're going to get this nice animation every single time, and here we go. It should tell you you are running XE Unshackle. Now it's going to state here that all the patches have been applied, so this is pretty much going to operate like a RGH or JTAG, but it also states this is not persistent. So like I said at the beginning and multiple times in this video, once you turn off your system, it's back to a stock state. Every time you want to remod your system, you're going to have to run through Rock Band Blitz and rerun bad update, and it should be good until your system turns off. But either way, we can see some important information here. We see our console type, our CPU key, and our DVD key. The first thing we should do is tap the X button right here in order to save the necessary info to a file. Once that's been saved, we can also go ahead and tap the Y button in order to save the first bootloader key. Now once both of those have been saved, you can see that DashLaunch has been loaded in. We should be all good at this point, and now we can hit the back button on our controller to exit. Now when you're here, go ahead, wait a few seconds, and after we get to the black screen here, we should have Aurora pop up. I'm not going to cut this out just so you all kind of get an idea for how long this will take. There we go. The first time around could take a little bit of time, like you see right here. One of the defaults is that it goes in and it scans for any type of title updates and immediately backs them up. So the first time you run Aurora, it's going to take a little longer than usual. But after this initial backup process is done, if it needs to be done on your system, it should boot up much quicker. Now while we're waiting on our title updates to back up, I think now is a pretty good time to share that you, yes you watching this video, if you are at this part, you actually now have some extended functionality on your system already just by running XE Unshackle. Yes, we are going to be able to run Homebrew, emulators, and all that fun stuff, but the additional functionality I'm talking about is right here with UsbdSecPatch. In case you do not know, this is a plugin that you can set up and install, which allows you to take an adapter, such as the one I have plugged in right there, and sync it up to many other type of wireless controllers. So you can see right here, I was using this to run a Nintendo Switch Pro controller on my system. This was an RGH, but I've even used it. My favorite function is being able to use it for a DualSense controller. So there's many other Bluetooth enabled controllers that you can use now on your system as long as you have one of those adapters. You can see here, this is the DualSense that I'm using. But I'm sharing this here not to show it off, but to actually tell you that you have this functionality now. You do not need to get an additional plugin, and it's actually already baked into XE Unshackle. So as long as you're able to get an adapter or able to adapt an additional controller to your system, you should be able to use other controllers such as, well, this DualSense right here. I'll have this video linked down below in the description. Like I said, you don't have to set up the plugin itself because it's already built into XE Unshackle's payload, but you can now have some more fun with your Xbox 360 just by copying a few files over to it. Now once you're past that part, you should come to this screen here, and congratulations, you are now officially in Aurora. This is your custom dashboard. You should also notice a few things, like for example, if you bring up the guide, you can see right here that you now have temperatures available right in the guide itself. So that also means that the Nova plugin is running successfully. Now there's not all too much here that we can do just yet, and we are going to be setting this up here in time. But one of the things you can do is you can now connect your system to the internet. So if you have an Ethernet cable, go ahead and plug it into the back. Don't worry, Xbox Live is blocked while this is running right here, but we can also navigate over to settings, go to system settings, X out of here, and if you're trying to get onto a wireless connection, you can do that by going to your network settings, and from here, configuring your wireless connection. Keep in mind, you can only have one at a time, so since I'm using wired, I can't use the wireless option right now, so that's fine. But we at least have that up and running. So now that we're back at the normal dashboard, if you hit the guide button and then tap the Y button to go to Xbox Home, it will by default bring you back to the Aurora dashboard. So now you know how to enter and exit out of this while Bad Update is up and running. But the first thing that we should do here is launch some Homebrew. And in order to do that, it's pretty simple here. We can hit the back button here within Aurora, go to the file manager, and then navigate over to where our USB drive is. Mine is USB 0. Tap the A button, go to your apps directory, and from here you can launch any of these right here. So for example, Aurora, we don't have to launch it because we've already launched it. But if you want to launch XEX menu, for example, you could tap A, look for the default executable, and tap the A button right here to launch it. Now you can see, once this loads up here, we have XEX menu. Now it might be a little bit confusing to use here, but in short, what you would do is use the right bumper and left bumper buttons in order to navigate between your games directory here and your actual drives. You can also go to the configuration, but you can cycle through all those like that. And then if you use the left and right buttons on your D-pad, through here you can change, if you look in the top right of the screen, the games directory, emulators directory, applications directory. But even if nothing shows up there, you can tap the RB or LB button, and you can change here between USB 0, hard drive 1, hard drive X, this is for backwards compatibility, your flash, which you should not touch here, and back to the USB drive. And of course your configuration, if you want to change up anything here you can, but I'm not going to be doing that here. So we have this available, and this is the raw file version of it. Now I'm going to come back over here to our system settings and go back to the main menu itself, or I guess the main dashboard, because you could also check this out right here if you navigate over to games and go to my games, go all the way to the end, you should be able to find the live version of XEX menu. Now I have both of them here because let's say you're in a situation where for some reason you're able to load up XE Unshackled but your Aurora is not working, which can happen at times. That way you do have a backup. So you can always go into Games, My Games, go into XEX menu, launch it, and then once it launches, you should have the ability to still navigate your system and jump around. Now there's one other way you can launch Homebrew as well, and that's actually right from the guide. If you bring up the guide, you'll see an option for file browser. Go ahead and tap A on the file browser, navigate over to wherever your drive is. Mine is going to be USB 0, and this is going to be a really important application to run here. Go to your apps directory, go to Simple 360 NAND Flasher, and we're going to run Simple 360 NAND Flasher. Find the default executable and tap the A button to launch it. Now there's only one option we need to do here, which is going to be to dump our NAND. So once you're here, tap the X button, and once you tap that, we just need to wait a few seconds. This is then going to take your internal system NAND and it's going to dump it onto your USB drive. The reason why we're doing this is because if your hard drive or even if your USB drive dies, that's fine and that's replaceable. But if your internal system flash ends up getting corrupted, or if there's a NAND issue, or if it has a bad flash or something along those lines, then your system is effectively bricked, meaning it is not going to work, it's not going to boot up. But if you have a good NAND backup like we have right here, you can then take that NAND backup, open up your system, hook up a hardware flasher to it through soldering, and then reflash your NAND and therefore restore functionality to your system. So once it's been dumped, we can press any key to exit, which we're going to do just that, and it should bring us back over to Aurora. So there we go, we're now at this point. Let's go ahead and get our console sensitive files backed up, and we need to pull them from that USB drive. In order to do that here, we can just pull the USB drive, but I actually don't recommend doing necessarily that because we are currently running an application on here, which is Aurora. And I'm also signed into a profile here. So personally, what I do, at least, even if it takes an extra few minutes, I like to just be safe and completely turn off my system and then unplug that drive and bring it over to the computer. Back over at the computer, plug in your drive, navigate over to it, look for the apps directory, look for Simple 360 NAND Flasher, and there's going to be a few things we're going to need. We can go ahead and grab the CPU key, the flashdump.bin, and even the log if we so wish to. You can go ahead, right click, cut all of these, and we're going to make a new folder and call it console backup trendy or whatever works for you. Even if you want to put the serial number for your system, you can do that. Now the other files we can back up within our USB drive will be under bad update payload, and within here grab consoleinfo.txt, original MAC address.bin, as well as trinity1bl.bin, or whatever your first bootloader file is going to be. You can go ahead, right click all of these, you can cut or copy them, I'm going to copy them, and then paste them into your console specific folder. So your console backups should look something like this. The most important ones are going to be the flashdump.bin and the CPU key.txt. This will not only work for decrypting your NAND if needed, but yet again, like I said, if you ever do anything that screws up your system flash, you can always reflash this flashdump.bin file and restore your system. So what I'm saying here is close out of all this, but keep this somewhere safe, back it up a few times, make sure it's still accessible as well too, because in case things go wrong with your system, you can always restore it to working state. Now, before we continue on to getting this level of awesomeness right here, I do want to share how you can keep your NAND safe. And in short, do not write anything to your NAND, do not flash it, do not modify your NAND if you are using bad update. If you have an RGH system or you're wanting to RGH a system, then modifying your NAND does make sense, and I'll show that right here. If you bring up the file manager, you might see something such as flash, and these are your internal flash storage files that are for your NAND itself. This is all the stuff that makes up your NAND. You don't want to touch this stuff. You don't want to mess with it. You know what? It's better to not even look at it if you're using a bad update. I can give you an example. There's many people who like to mess with fake anim, which is short for fake animation, to kind of replace the boot up sequence on here. And one of the steps, which is optional, is to delete the bootanim.xex. I'll tell you this, if you delete this file while using bad update, you will completely lock yourself out of bad update. Bad update, the way it works is that it requires some calls to this file right here. So if you delete it or even replace it with one which does not match, you will completely lock yourself out of bad update. And at that point, the only way to restore bad update or even modify your system further, is to then solder in a NAND flasher and reflash the last working backup, or just go all the way forward and RGH your system. Additionally, if you ever need to mess with anything related to DashLaunch, do not ever use the DashLaunch application on bad update. If you use it here, in order to actually make use of it, you need to install it. And if you install it, that is one of the easiest ways to brick your system, which yet again, you have to then open up your system, solder in a NAND programmer, and reflash your last working backup in order to get it up and running, or just go all out and RGH your system. If you want to do anything related to DashLaunch, you have to do it within your launch INI file. You do not do it through the application. So this is my long, short way of saying if you like your system up and running and working as is, and you want to continue to have it be like that, do not mess around with your NAND, do not play around with your NAND, do not touch it. You can back it up with no issues, but do not write anything to your NAND. So now that we're back over in our nice modified side here, let's go ahead and start making our Aurora look a little nicer here. Now what we can do, like I said, I am on the network, which is nice because that will allow you to download cover art and such. But what you can do is hit the settings button, which will be the start button, go down to content, go to manage paths, and tap A on the add section right here. Now for your path selection, hit A on the change option. And the first one we're going to add in is going to be within HDD1. Tap the A button. Now go down to the content directory. Now highlight the zeros directory and tap the Y button on here and change your scan depth to 3. Scroll down here, tap save, and that's going to be added in. You can also choose to enable or disable auto scan. That's going to be up to you. I personally choose to disable it here. Now what I'm going to do is also add in my apps. So I'm going to hit the A button on add, hit change. Now go to your USB drive, go to wherever your apps are at, highlight this, and for the depth here, I'm going to keep it 2. And let me show you how that works real quick. This essentially tells Aurora, if you go in here to the apps directory, how many folders it has to get through in order to find an executable. So for example, if we highlight apps, this would be 1. And then if we find XEX menu, that would be 2. So it takes us 2 hops essentially to get to our applications, which is why I said the path there would be 2. So again, you're going to highlight this, tap the Y button, depth of 2 is fine, and then you can save that out. And if there's any other paths that we want to add in, we certainly can. I'll go ahead and hit scan again, but now we can close out of here. Now you can see here it's adding quite a bit of content because this is not only stuff I already had on this hard drive, much like you probably do. Well, some of it might not be 100% correct, but it's going to show a few things like simple 360 NAND flasher, and I believe this is going to be XEX menu, just the things that are showing up, just anything that I added to those paths to scan. And you can always add or remove whatever you want to from that. So now if you want to do a little bit of maintenance, well, let's see, for example, Amazon Instant Video, I really don't need this here. So if you want to hide something, you can hover over it, tap the Y button, and go down, and we're going to look for hide. So you can come to the rename section, navigate over to the left, and tap the A button to hide this. And then once you do that, it ends up hiding it from regular view. Alternatively, if you want to delete something, like for example, let's see, I know like Netflix, I'm not going to use this on here, so if you just want to outright delete something, you can find it, tap the Y button on here, navigate down to the rename section, and this time around, we're going to navigate all the way over to the left to the delete option, tap the A button, and keep in mind this is going to delete the content itself. So as long as you're okay with doing this, you can hit yes, and you can delete that. That's going to be up to you. Like I said, I'm just doing that because I know I'm never going to use Netflix on here. Oh yeah, and let's say if you end up hiding a game on accident, like let's say I accidentally hide Metro 2033 and I want to get it back, well, what you can do is you can tap the B button within Aurora. It's going to bring up the filters and sort options here, navigate over to options and enable show hidden titles. Now press the B button, and you can see here that any hidden titles are going to look a little something like this, just a little bit ghostly. In order to unhide it, you just tap the Y button on it, go down to the bottom, tap left, tap A on show, and now that's all done. So now we can go ahead, uncheck that, and let me go ahead and clean this up a little bit. So now I've been able to reorganize this a little bit so I have everything showing up that I care about here. Now here's one of the things, for example, this is simple 360 NAND flasher, which loads up just fine, but I believe this one, like I said, is XEX menu, and you can check this by hitting the Y button on here. If I go to the file manager, which you can again tap over on this section, tap the left button until you get to file manager, and yep, you can see this is XEX menu. So if you want to change this here, you can just go in and hit the rename option, and change it to whatever you're wanting to, because XCX menu will be much easier than session sampler. There we go, I've renamed that, and even if you come up here to the preview section and then tap the left button all the way over to the left, you can download a new cover here. So you can see there's a few others that come up. It doesn't seem to bring up the XCX menu one, unfortunately, but you can go in here and you can change your cover. So I'll actually do something a little different. I'm kind of going to keep that one the same, but I'll go over to Simple 360 NAND Flasher, go ahead, download a new cover, and which one? I actually liked this one, so I'm going to go with that one. You just need to give it some time to download and then process and apply it, and after a few seconds, you should be good. And we're getting to that point here, so let's check, and there we go. That is a whole new cover that we have. So now with Aurora looking a little nicer, I would like to show you all a few ways you can get some of your games on here. And the first thing we're going to be messing with is Xbox 360 titles, specifically games from disk. So I already have a disk loaded up here. I'm going to close up my tray. And once you load this in, as long as you have a hopefully working DVD drive here, it should pop up. Now you can see here, it's checking the device in the top left corner, and there we go. We have Army of Two, which it should recognize as that. Now, as usual, if it is recognized and there is cover art for it, it's able to download it and populate it as long as you're connected to the network, and you can just play the game right here. But what we want to do is actually install the game over, because that way we can copy the game over to an internal or an external drive, and once that's been installed, we can then play it directly on our console without having to put the disc in every time. So pretty nice option right there. Now there's a few ways that we can copy over this game, and I'll say this here, if you're just wanting to play the game, you really don't want to mess around with the internal files and all that stuff, we can just install the game as usual. In order to do that, one of the options that we have is to bring up the guide, go over to System Settings, exit out of here, and we're going to get back to the main dashboard. Now once we're in the main dashboard, exit out here, navigate over to wherever your disk is at, and tap the X button over your disk. Might have to do that again, and then tap A on the install section right here. Give it a few moments, and this will allow you to either install it to the internal hard drive or wherever your USB storage is. I'm going to choose to install it to the hard drive because, again, we can just load it up and play it as usual. Now, if you've never installed a 360 disk before, it's something like this. You're just going to sit here for 10-15 minutes or so. The disk drive is going to be loud during that time, and then once it's completed, you can take the disk out. So here we go. This has completed, so once that's all done, we can just tap the A button, exit out of here. Now we're going to bring up the guide and hit the Y button on here because, well, we're going to get right back to Aurora. So that's one way you can install a game. Another way you can install a game through a games on demand container, essentially, which is pretty similar to how we just installed that last game, is, well, directly through Aurora itself. If you prefer to rip your games this way, or maybe there's some games that might not have an installer option, this could work as well too. What you can do for this is bring up the back button, go to your scripts option, and then go into the Aurora repo browser. Now you must be connected to the internet for this. From here you can go down to the utility scripts, and there's a few that we can download. One of them we can get is the Aurora database cleaner, so I'm going to go ahead and get that. We're also going to get the Disk2God installer, so let's install that. This is also helpful to regain some storage space, so I'm going to get Free My Disk. And I'm also going to get the Homebrew store, which is a pretty great one to have. We're going to revisit Zifu Spoofer here, but that's a good one. Either way, we can close out of all of this here, and you can see that we now have a few other options. So for Aurora Disk2God installer, you can go ahead and bring this up, tap the A button on launch, it's going to execute the script, and from here you just need to select where to save this out to. Now in order to save this as a properly recognized games on demand container, you can go over to either HDD1, tap the A button, go into the content directory, and then tap the Y button on the zeros directory. Otherwise, if you want to copy this directly to a USB device, for example, you can go down to your USB drive, go to the content directory, and then highlight Y on the zeros directory. It's up to you wherever you want to install this. I'm personally going to install this over to the internal drive, so I'm going to tap the A button. I'm going to go down to content, highlight zeros, and tap Y. It's now going to ask if this is okay to create the title and media IDs, so you can say yes. And now it's going to start installing that disk. So just like before, you can just sit here and wait. The main difference here is that this is all within Aurora, so you don't have to jump back to the original dashboard. So thankfully the disk drive is about to be really quiet here soon, but you could see it is about to complete. But unlike doing this through the normal dashboard, once it is completed, it just says that, and then it will ask if you want to scan for content now, in which you can say yes or no. For the time being, I'm at least going to say no here. But But once that's all done, we can go ahead and close out of here, and now we can eject our game. Now for our final Xbox 360 title, I'm going to show you another game, and I'm going to show you a different way of ripping it, which might be helpful at times. This is going to extract the game into a raw file format, and that is helpful if there's individual files that you want to modify, take a look into, whatever is needed, if you just need an extracted version. But this can also help you out for games that just will not play under a games on demand container or cannot be installed like that. And I'll give the example right here. So for example, if we pop this in, go back to system settings and go to the standard dashboard, we can exit out here, and I'll show you all that if we try and play this here, this is actually a bonus bit. Not only this is an imported title, so now using bad update allows us to play imported games, but if we go in here, there's no way to install this game. And I know for a fact if I installed this as a games on demand title, it would not work. But there is a way to get it to work if you extract it. In order to extract a game within Aurora, you can press the back button on your controller, go to the file manager, and we're going to go to the DVD section and tap the A button. When you're in here, hold down the X button and navigate all the way down. Now there might be a bunch more files and folders, but you can see right here there's only one folder and one file I need to copy over. Once those have all been selected, navigate to the left, go all the way down to the copy section and tap the A button to make sure that those files and folders have been queued up to copy. Now tap the right bumper on your controller, and you can save this wherever you're wanting to. Now you could either save it to a directory on the hard drive or on a USB drive. I'm personally going to save this to the USB drive just to change it up a bit. But navigate over to your USB drive, and in here, if you're going to be setting up any extracted games, this is the format I would recommend. Navigate to the left, create a new folder, and we're going to call this one games. Just keep it simple. So there we go, we have our games directory, and inside of the games directory, we then want to create a separate directory for our actual game. So create another one here, and I'll name this one accordingly. So once that's been created, hit start, then navigate into that directory, and once you're in your game directory, tap the left button, go all the way down to paste, tap A, and say yes. And now it's going to do the same thing, but instead of actually packaging it up into a games on demand container, it's just going to take the raw files and copy them wherever you've directed it to. I like to pick this game because it's a little bit of an anomaly. Not only it does not install properly, if you try to install it, it will not play. It's also an imported title, and it is also really small. It's only a few hundred megabytes. So you can see here, within a minute, it was already copied over. So there we go. With all that done, I can also now eject the disk for this game here, because we're not going to need to pop in these disks. So now with our games safely on a shelf somewhere, we can now get them populated in Aurora. In order to do that, you have to hit the start button under your settings, go down to content, and if you have any games within these paths here, you can hit scan now and it will add them. If you have auto scan, it will automatically do this. Otherwise, if you've created some new paths like I have here, you're going to have to create a new path. Tap the A button on add, do the same thing. We're going to change this. Mine is going to be USB 0. Games, I'm going to highlight this and tap the Y button. Scan depth of 2 is fine, and we're going to save that. And now we're going to hit scan now, and at this point, we're just going to wait. There should be 3 new games that pop up. Generally, what I like to do is not mess around with anything until everything has been downloaded and processed, but you can see right here, we now have Army of 2, we also have King Kong, and we have Tetris right there. So let's go ahead and give them all a shot. First of all, for Army of 2, in order to load up the game, you just tap the A button, wait for it to load in, and there we go. Just like that, it brought it up. I can even bring up the guide button right here, and you can see it says open tray, meaning that there's nothing in the disk tray, meaning that I don't have to put in my disk anymore in order to run this game. And it loads up pretty fast as well too. You all saw how little or how long that took. So there we go, it is launching, it is working, that is good. And a quick aside here, if you're into games like this, Army of 2 is pretty good if you haven't played it. I didn't like the ones after this, but the first one kind of sort of did it the best. So the next one we're going to run here is King Kong. Go ahead, find the game, tap the A button, and let's see what happens. This is also one that is installed to the hard drive itself, so let's wait a bit. There we go. We got the Ubisoft logo, and you can see right here, just like before, the game is booting up and working. So this is able to install with no issue. Let's at least get to the start screen here. So there we go. I'm just going to say play without saving. Yeah, that's fine. But you can see here that the main menu is loading up. And just like before, if I bring up the guide, there's nothing in my disk tray. So this is all working as expected. The last one here is going to be Tetris. So I'll go ahead, tap the A button on this. Now, this doesn't have too much information about it, I believe, because I know it's a pretty early, I think it might be actually a Japanese launch title, if I remember correctly. But as you can see here, it took a few seconds, it's loading in, and Tetris is working, which is also another great game to see. Now, this one was different because not only I ended up ripping this one directly as an extracted format to the USB drive itself, but again, like I said, this is a Japanese game and I'm playing it on an American console. On top of that, the disc itself is also region locked, so it is nice that we can now actually play these games. And if you're somebody who's been interested in importing games, or maybe you have imported games for your 360, you can now play them pretty effortlessly using bad update. While we're here, I'd also like to cover title updates as well. Now, title updates are going to be for Xbox 360 games, and if you're doing it all through Aurora, you're going to be downloading them through the servers and services that Aurora has. So if you want to get a title update for a game, again, not all the title updates are there, and not all games will have title updates, but Army of Two, for example, you can tap the Y button on here, go down to the title updates section, and there's none that are installed here. But if you tap the RB button, you can look in the Unity Marketplace, and you can see here that there is at least a version 2 update. So if you want to download one, you just have to select it, tap the A button, and now wait. It is a little bit slow, I'm going to be honest about that, but just be patient and let it do its thing. So here we go, that is now downloaded. Once that's been downloaded, you can navigate over to installed, and you can see that it has not been enabled. So you can just tap the A button, it's going to enable it, you can hit back, and now you can come up here, tap A to launch this, it applies a title update, and now we just need to wait for the game to boot up. There we go. Thankfully it booted pretty fast, but now if we tap the guide right here, if you look in the bottom right corner, you'll see all the information associated with this game. The tile ID, the media ID, the version number, the disc, but also the TU. Now before, when I played this game, it was showing up as TU0, meaning that there was no title update. Now we have TU2, meaning that we've been able to apply title update 2 successfully. So there we go, that is how you can quickly and easily set up title updates for your games. Let's go ahead and exit out of here. So now I'm going to show you a completely separate generation, which is going to be original Xbox backwards compatibility. There's many ways that you can set this up depending on your modifications and such, but now it's pretty well stabilized, and one of the ways I'd covered before does not really work with XE Unshackle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you all how you can set up really from scratch here, not only playing original Xbox games on your Xbox 360, but even how you can make use of the modified backwards compatibility files. Now, in order to really maximize this, there's going to be a few additional downloads we need to get and set up on here. I'm going to have the links down below in the description. One of them is going to be for original Xbox games on the Xbox 360 over from Console Mods. And I'm going to link these because not only they have really great written options here, but they usually keep their download links and such up to date, so it's going to be a little easier to manage that. Now on this first page here, if you actually want to check out the games compatibility list, you can click on that right here, and it's going to show which games have what level of compatibility, because you see there's essentially many different emulators for the original Xbox. It's not just one, it's going to be many different files that have different modifications and do different things, and you can see on all of these here that some of them might not work on certain versions of the emulator, but other games might work pretty well on some newer versions of the emulators that have been discovered. So I'll go ahead and have you all take a look at this here, and you can look and see if your favorite games might be on here. I know the game we're going to be playing, let's see, is Grand Theft Auto 3, and thankfully that seems to be good all the way through. Someone did note that the game runs flawlessly on Zifu 2021C, so we will keep that in mind. Either way, there's going to be a few files to download from this page here. One of them, if we can scroll down to installing the original Xbox emulator files, is going to be with a modified console. The first thing is going to be downloading the hacked compatibility files zip file right here. And the second one will be downloading the Xbox One Zifu files. For this one here, you can just click on this. It's going to bring you to a digits link right here, in which you can download this and save it somewhere you can easily find it. You're also going to need the partition fixer from this page. You can just go ahead and click on it right here and save that somewhere you can easily find it. The next one is going to be information on the Fusion emulator, which that's what it stands for. Zifu is Xenon Fusion. Now what we can do is use Zifu Spoofer for this. This is going to allow us to change up and manipulate the actual emulator files themselves. So like I said right here, with Zifu 2021 right here, we have a few of them available. And like we noted on Zifu 2021C, that seemed to play Grand Theft Auto 3 allegedly flawlessly, so we can give that a try. In order to download ZFU you can come over here and click on download the files from console mods and then save the zip file somewhere you can easily find it. Now once you have all 4 downloads here, just go ahead, highlight everything, right click, and use something such as 7-zip to extract them all to their own directories. Now with all of them extracted, we're going to copy them over in a bit of a specific way. Navigate over to your USB drive, and inside of here we can create a new folder, and I'm going to call mine OGXBC. Something like that should work. Now within here, the first thing you need to do is take the hard drive compatibility partition fixer and copy and paste it to the root right there. The next thing we need is the hacked backwards compatibility files. Now if you navigate in here, there is a README that I'd recommend giving a read and a once over, but if you want to keep this short, essentially the 128 megabyte RAM versions are a little bit more experimental and not the most stable. If you want the most stable experience, we're going to have to go with the most boring option, which is 64 megabyte and the regular version. If you want to play around with the ones that have like HUD access or HUD and plugins access, you can, but from my experience and from what I've seen with many people, the regular one is going to be the most boring but the most stable one. You can go ahead, right click, and copy out this regular folder or whichever folder you're going to choose and paste it next to this one right here. Now once that's copied over, navigate over to the Xbox One ZFU files, open up ZFU files, and you're going to have patched and unpatched. The one we're going to need is the patched directory. Right click this, copy it out, and paste it next to everything else. And finally, we're going to need ZFU Spoofer, in which we can just copy that over. We're going to have to put these all in a few different places, so just follow along and you should get sorted by the end. Now once you're in Aurora, go ahead and bring up the file manager, and you're going to want to see if you have an HDDX partition right here. If you do have one, awesome. If not, all good, we can fix that for you. Now do keep in mind, this HDDX partition is only on internal hard drives and it is required to play original Xbox games. Unfortunately, there's no way around it. That's just how the architecture of this system works. However, if we go in here, you might see a compatibility folder, and keep this in mind, this should be the original stock backwards compatibility files. Now the new ones we're going to be copying over, the ones on the USB drive right here, these ones have been modified. They do have some additional fixes and some additional patches in there that allow them, to example, to boot up any type of original Xbox game, as opposed to just staying limited to the ones that Microsoft allowed. Now that's great, but the downside to these modified ones is that they will only work when you're using bad update. Essentially that means if you want to play original Xbox games at all, you're going to have to be booted up using bad update, and you'll have to boot them up here with Aurora, or you could do it from disk as well too. But what I'm saying is, if you turn off your system and you do not run it with bad update, you cannot play original Xbox games. That compatibility will be broken until you get into a modified state again. So this is going to be completely up to you if you want to go through with the modified files. I'm personally going to do that because I really don't play original Xbox games on here all too much, and I do like the benefits of those modified files. So if you want to follow along, check this out here. You can go ahead, tap the back button, go to your file manager, and we're going to go into the HDDX partition if you have one already. Navigate in here, find your compatibility folder, tap the X button when you highlight it, now navigate to the left and tap A on copy. It's going to make sure that's in queued. Now navigate over to your USB drive, we can go to OGXBC, and let's create a new folder, and we're going to call this backup. We're going to be backing this up because just in case there's ever anything that goes wrong with this here, or if you just want to have that original Xbox stock backwards compatibility available, you can always just restore this folder over and you'll have that available. So go into the backup folder, we're going to paste this right here, and there we go. After a few seconds, we should have everything backed up. So now once that's backed up, let's close out of here, bring this back up, and now we're going to work on getting the new backwards compatibility set up. So in order to do that, go to USB 0, OGXBC, and the first thing we're going to run is hard drive compatibility partition fixer. Navigate in here, tap the A button on the default executable. Now keep in mind, it's now going to wipe that HDDX partition, and if you do not have one, it's going to create one for you. But as long as you're okay with that, tap the A button right here. It's not going to take too long. And there we go. Once it's done, you can press B to exit and wait for Aurora to load back up. Now keep in mind, once we're here, we cannot do much else until we restart the system. It is a required part of this. So you're going to have to turn off the system, and once you restart the system, just go through the process of getting signed back into your bad update account, loading up Rock Band Blitz, and then press the A button right here and run the exploit. wait a few seconds or a few minutes, and you should hopefully be back in Aurora here pretty soon. Now once you're back over at Aurora, go ahead, bring up the file manager, navigate over to USB drive, OGXBC, and now we're going to start copying all these over. So what we can do is navigate over to our modified directory. Mine is the regular one here. Navigate into this and you'll see a compatibility folder. You're going to want to tap X right here, navigate to the left, go down and tap A on copy. Now tap the right bumper, go to your HDDX partition, tap the A button, and once this loads in, tap left, go down to paste, say yes, and wait for it to copy over. So we now have that all copied. Navigate over to the left bumper yet again. Now we need the patched ones. So go into the patch directory, and we need all these files. So hold down the X button, and then navigate all the way down until every single file has a check mark on it. Navigate to the left, go down to the copy option, tap A, go back to HDDX. This time around, we're going to go into the compatibility folder, and within here, navigate to the left, go down, tap A on paste, say yes, and make sure it copies everything over. The last one now is going to be the Zifu Spoofer v3. So go ahead, highlight this folder by tapping the X button, navigate to the left, copy it out. Now we're going to go back, and we're actually going to go up to this Aurora directory right here. Navigate into Aurora, go over to User, go into Scripts, go into Utility, and inside of here, navigate to the left, go down, tap A on paste, and say yes. And there we go. Now that's all set up. So now everything is in place. The downside is we need to reboot one more time to make sure that takes proper effect. So now with all that prep work done, don't worry, it should hopefully be worth it here. Let's go ahead and play one of our original Xbox games. So for this, I've picked one of my favorite games here, actually my favorite game, Grand Theft Auto 3. In order to copy this over, because we're going to do the same thing as before, you can technically play it from disk, but you know what, let's go ahead and get this backed up as well. We can press the back button, go to File Manager. Now go to the DVD section, and in here, you're going to hold down the X button and navigate all the way down because we're going to do a raw file copy. Once all these have been checked, navigate to the left, go to the copy option, tap the A button, now tap the right bumper, and once you're in here, you can pick wherever you want to save this game. Now remember, this is a raw file extract, so we're going to have to add another path. But I'm going to go to my USB drive actually, I'll choose to keep it here. And inside of here, I'm going to create a new folder. You can call it whatever you want to, but I'm going to call mine OGX Games for OG Xbox Games. Now, once you're in here, go into whichever folder you've created, and we now need to create a new folder for our game itself. So we've named it properly, there we go. And once your game folder has been created, navigate into that game folder, tap the left button, go all the way down to the paste option, say yes, and now let it go ahead, scan all your files, and then copy everything over. Just like before, it's not going to be as loud, but it is going to find all the files and just copy them directly over to your drive. Just wait a few minutes for this. So now once everything's done copying over, we can go ahead and close out of here. And I'm also going to go as far as to remove the disk from here because, well, the whole point of copying the disk over is so we don't have to keep popping it back in. So we should be in a better spot at this point. Now, in order to add your original Xbox games here, press the start button, go to content, and just like before, you just need to set a new path. So mine's going to be in USB 0 OGX games. There we go. 2 is fine. Let's go ahead, save, scan now, and let's give it a few moments. So here we go. It popped up pretty quickly here. Now, in order to run this, you could just press the A button and have it launch with whichever default emulator it is set with. But that's not going to be the most fun option here because you see, we end up doing all that work to use Zifu Spoofer and these modified files. So let's actually give that a try. In order to do that, we can press the back button, go to Scripts, and from here, load up Zifu Spoofer. Once you're within Zifu Spoofer, it's going to back up the files. And from here, the way it works is you can choose any of these Zifu files, and it's essentially going to modify and rename all of them to launch from that one file. So for example, if I set Zifu 7 as the default, no matter what game I play, every single game is going to launch under Zifu 7, which could work fine for some games and can break many other games. So if you ever want to revert it in the future, you can just come up to reset to default, and that'll just reset them to default. Now, I know from reading this that apparently Zifu 2021C seems to be a good one. So I'm going to tap the A button, it says spoofing Zifu, and that's all that's done. So now we can close out of here, and once that's been spoofed, tap the A button on your game, wait for it to load in. If you get this white Xbox screen, that is a good sign, and if you stay here, that's a little bit better, but now we just need to wait for it to load in. And there we go. As you can see, the game is booting up. So if you've gotten to this page here, it is going to sign you out of your profile because that's just how original Xbox games work on the 360, but the nice thing is we do have this actually running and working, meaning that all of our setup that we did and all those files we copied over, everything's been done successfully. You know what's funny? I actually completely forgot I had a save on here. I guess I just played the first mission and then I got to this point, and you know, I actually remember the video I did it on, but I completely forgot I had a save on here. So you can see that we're actually in game and such, and it's looking decent. It's looking good. I'm happy with this. So that is how you can run some original Xbox games and get them to a little bit more of a maybe better and even modified state using this. Now, I've wanted to use this video for some of the more common things, which one of them is going to be, of course, getting your game backups from disk up and running, and even original Xbox game disks, as that seemed to be pretty common. But there is also some really great stuff out there, which is also in Xbox Live Arcade and even games on demand format. Now, in the interest of keeping this video a little bit shorter, because I know it's already running pretty long here, there is a video I covered prior which shows how to back up and play really all kinds of Xbox 360 games using Bad Update. Keep in mind we no longer have to do the individual patching for disk-based backups, which is why I did not cover it on here. However, this video here I've done before shows how you can take games on demand games as well as Xbox Live Arcade games, back them up, unlock them, and play them properly on a Bad Update or really any Bad Update enabled system after they've been patched. So if you're looking specifically for a solution for your digital content, this video is going to have you covered, and there's also going to be timestamps so you can jump around wherever you need to. Another type of game is actually Xbox Live indie games. You might not know about this, but these were a thing on the Xbox 360 for several years, and if you're interested in playing these as well, there is a separate video that covers this as well too. So you can go ahead and check that out and have some fun with some indie games. Now, at the end of this video, if you made all the way to the end, first of all, thank you, but secondly, there's two questions I'm going to answer here. Number one, I think I've talked about this a little bit, but many people ask me, is there a way to make Bad Update persistent? And the answer is no. Bad Update itself is not persistent. You have to relaunch Rock Band Blitz, and you have to go through this process every time you boot up your system if you want to keep it in a modified state. However, if you are looking for a persistent modification, RGH is going to be the option. RGH 1.2 is the best one for FATs, and RGH 3 is going to be for slim systems. There is RGH 3 for FATs, but it is unstable. I'm not going to get into it here. I have a video covering it, and I have a warning right at the beginning of the video, so it's pretty unavoidable. So if you end up really liking having a modified 360, but you don't want to jump into this every single time using Rock Band Blitz, you can RGH your system. The second thing is that I've been asked many times, is there a way you can move all of the Bad Update files, for example, the Bad Update payload and even Rock Band Blitz, can you move all of those to the internal drive, so that way you can get rid of the USB drive? Well, the answer for that is going to be no. You see, the closest you can get is you can go in here and you can copy your Rock Band Blitz game to the internal drive, but I don't really see the point of that because you still need the USB drive. And Rock Band Blitz is only about 350 megabytes in size, so it's a pretty small game. But when we're talking about the actual Bad Update right here, like Bad Update payload, no. The way this has been designed is that all the paths are hard-coded within Bad Update to be run from a USB drive. So you do have to stick with that USB drive. But any of your applications, your content, your installed games, that can go anywhere. That can go on your Bad Update USB drive. You can hook up a second drive and put them on there. You could even put them on your internal hard drive. Really, whatever you want to do, that's fine. But the actual Bad Update files must be on a USB drive, meaning a USB drive is required for this. So that's about it for this video here. Hopefully it helped you all out. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. This was a ton here. Again, I am aware of that, but I was trying to just really pack in as much as I could here. So hopefully if you're here by the end and you are following along with this, you've gone from having a completely stock retail no frills Xbox 360 to having one that is pretty similar to an RGH. I will say this, with Bad Update stability updates here, it's now a pretty great daily driver, and while it's not as good as RGH, it's still going to do most of the things that people who want to use a modded 360 for will enable them to do so. So that's pretty nice. If you ever want something more, if you ever want more control and you don't want to jump into this every time, again, RGH is a great option, but at this point now, I can say Bad Update is a pretty viable solution. On top of that, really looking at this here, using it, messing around with it, I'll tell you, if I just booted this up here and put this controller in a friend's hand and told them this was an RGH system, they would probably believe me. They probably wouldn't be able to tell the difference just from seeing this and experiencing it right here. So that's pretty impressive. Either way, that is about it for this video here. This is Mr. Mario, signing off. Thank you all for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, a like would absolutely be appreciated, and if you didn't like it, a dislike is fine as well too.